Joining us now is Scott Miller of CBS He was in Goodyear today. Scott, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Real good. How are you?
Are you in Goodyear as we speak?
No, actually, I was in Goodyear yesterday and wrote about Francona and the Indians, and today I was with the Giants in Scottsdale.
Boy, day late, dollar short with the Indians after the Bourn signing, huh?
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to be back with the Indians next week. But, I was there yesterday, and, it was awful quiet. But, word broke last night about Bourn. And, interesting. You got to like the way the Indians are starting to, at least spend some money.
I personally gave the Indians a B, maybe a B plus before the Bourn acquisition. Now I can maybe go as high as B plus, A minus. I can't go A plus because the start of the front end of the starting rotation has not been addressed. I like the Meyer acquisition, but as you know, he's a 500 pitcher. But offensively and defensively, on paper, the Indians have improved dramatically. As a neutral, honest broker, your observations?
Yes, I think there's no question that the Indians are better. You like this team going into spring training, for me, much better than last year's team. From the moves, across the board. I mean, Bourn in center field is going to be terrific. You would think Nick Swisher is a proven winner. I think he's going to add some life and an edge to the clubhouse. Mark Reynolds, it gives them some pop that they haven't had in a while. I like, as you mentioned, Myers. And I like Terry Francona as manager. He's obviously a proven winner as well. I think they've added some talent, some brains, some personality, and some guys who know how to win.
I don't think it's any hidden secret the Tigers are still the team to beat, maybe not just in the Central Division, but the American League. But certainly with what the Indians have done, do you now put them in the mix with Kansas City, because they're much improved, too, with what they've done in the offseason? And what about the White Sox? I can't, the White Sox did nothing except lose A.J.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, to start with the Royals, as you mentioned, I really like what they did. The trade in which they got James Shields and Wade Davis from the Rays, and then they signed Irvin Santana, who was a free agent late of the Angels. I think the rotation is going to be better, and if these guys pitch up to their potential, I think the Royals are going to be a much, much improved club. I mean, they've been able to, they've had the young nucleus in their lineup, guys that are going to drive that offense, like Hosmer at first base and Moustakas at third base, and Alex Gordon has come into his own. They're not perfect. I mean, I don't know how much offense they're going to get from the middle infield. Guys like Getz and Escobar, but those first guys I mentioned, they can score. And now, if their problem has been pitching. And if they get a rotation together, as it looks like it will come together, the expectation for the first time in a long time in Kansas City is to win, and that is unlike what we've seen from Kansas City in a long, long time. The White Sox, you're right. I mean, Kenny Williams is generally very, very aggressive,
right?
And yet he sat back and kept this team together for the most part, other than A.J. Brzezinski leaves. They made a nice run last year under new manager Robin Ventura. They were in the race with the Tigers up until the last week of the season. And, can they do that again? Well, Chris Sale has to continue to improve, and Jake Peavy's got to stay healthy.
The Tigers, let's assume Victor is fully back, he's healthy, and resumes his prowess at the plate like we all know he's capable of. And the addition of Torrey Hunter in the two-hole and, with all that protection behind him as he had with Pujols a year ago with the Angels. The lineup is awesome. The starting rotation is arguably the best in the American League, maybe the majors, with the front end guy especially. But they have weaknesses. Their bullpen doesn't figure to be as strong, and defensively, they've got holes galore. Is that enough to perhaps open the gate for the Indians or the Royals?
I think no question it is. To me, the Tigers, they're better than they were last year, I really think, because as you mentioned, Victor Martinez is healthy, and Torrey Hunter's an upgrade over Delman Young. And Torrey Hunter's also going to help them defensively, by the way. He's going to make that outfield with Hunter's going to catch a lot more balls in that outfield than Delman Young could ever dream of catching. So that said, they're a lot like they were last year. I think going into the year, you look at that Tigers roster, and you think they ought to win this division going away by 10 or 15 games. But then you look at the weaknesses you point out, Bruce, especially defensively. And last year, that really kept the door open, as I said, for the White Sox, who stayed in it up until the end, the last week of the season. With like 12 days left, the White Sox were in first place. Same thing could happen this year with both the Indians and Royals, I do think. I mean, I can look at this stuff on paper, and I can give you reasons why the Tigers ought to win by 10 or 15 games. And I can look at some of the same names on paper and look at the flaws. And then you think, well, if the Indians, if everything goes right, if the Royals, everything goes right, and in Detroit, if there's an injury or two, and especially if they don't catch the ball, you could see easily a season in which the Indians and or the Royals surprise everybody and stay into the end.
Let me ask you, Scott, about the West. I mean, the addition of Hamilton to put in the same lineup with Pujols and Trumbo and Trout now with the season that he had, that's unbelievable. They added Hanson, but they did lose Santana and Herron. That's one question about that West. And Greinke, too. My goodness, how can I forget Greinke? But the other thing, are you surprised Texas didn't do more? They lose Young, they lose Hamilton, they lose Napoli. I'm confused kind of with both those teams.
Well, I'll tell you what, start with Texas. I don't know if I'd say I'm surprised they didn't do more because they were out there trying. I think more with Texas is the fact that they were so quiet is that just amplifies what a dog-eat-dog world it is and how tough it is in the not just over a 162-game schedule, but in the wintertime, how tough it is to win. The Rangers didn't do much, but it was not for lack of trying. They tried to keep Josh Hamilton, but they drew a line. They said, we're not going to give him the farm, and so the Angels decided to do that, so they lose Hamilton. They tried really hard to trade for Justin Upton before the Atlanta Braves pulled that off. That was one of the balls the Rangers had in the air. They really tried hard to sign Zach Greinke, and up until the last 48 hours of that negotiating window when the Dodgers swooped in, the Rangers thought they were in good position to sign Greinke. So, with the Rangers, it wasn't for lack of trying. It's just after they've had a really nice 3 or 4 year run, things just didn't work out. They didn't fall into place for the Rangers this winter. And now we're going to see if Jerks and Profar and Mike Olt and a couple of young kids like that are really talented can step up and, help keep the Rangers where they were. As far as the Angels, Herron fell out of favor last year. He's given so much to them, and he's been so good, but he's been so healthy. But last year, he was bothered by lower back injury much of the year. It hampered his effectiveness. I think the Angels, when they kissed him off, and he signed with 1 year deal with Washington Nationals for $13 million, I think the Angels had pretty much just decided, you know what, we've gotten everything we can get out of him. From here on out, it's going to be diminishing returns with Dan Herron. And they were kind of a similar mode with Irvin Santana. He's been maddeningly inconsistent for them for the past 4 or 5 years. So they decided to shake up the rotation, go in a different direction. We'll see if it works.
And finally, before I let you go, the East. It seems to be such a sexy, popular choice to just on a silver platter give Toronto the divisional crown with all of the moves that they made. But let me borrow a line from Lee Corso. Not so fast, my friend. They're still the Yankees, even though I think they have major question marks about their starting rotation, because I wanted to pick your brain about Pineda. I don't know what his health status is. And they're still Tampa Bay. And as long as they got Price and Hellickson and some of those guys, I mean, what they've done over these past few years is unbelievable.
It is. I don't think the Yankees know what the status of Michael Pineda is. They're hoping he comes back from that arm injury last year, but that's what they're going to find out here in the first couple weeks of spring camp. Totally agree. That division, more than any other, I think, has compressed over the past year or so. You used to look at that thing and you pretty much pencil the Yankees and Red Sox atop the division. Then there was this big gap, and then there was everybody else. And then Tampa Bay finally moved over that gap. Then it became the Rays, the Red Sox, the Yankees, huge gulf, and then the Jays and Orioles. Well, the Jays and Orioles both have gotten better. We saw the Orioles. We saw that come to fruition last year when they made the playoffs. The Blue Jays really made a run over the winter to add a ton of pieces. That trade with the Marlins, I think, is really going to help them. You're right. It's all on paper right now. I remember a year ago, when the Angels had signed Albert Pujols. And I know in spring training last year, everybody looked and said, oh, geez, the Angels this year, they're going to bowl past Texas,
Right.
with Albert Pujols.
Yeah,
well, they didn't even make the playoffs last year. The Oakland A's won the division. So,
Right.
That's the beautiful thing about this game. You just don't know. We can sit here in the spring, look at how things look on paper. The only thing I can guarantee you is end of September, there's going to be a bunch of things in September that there's no way we can foresee right now.
Scott, it's been a delight. We'll call upon you again. Thanks so much.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you.
Scott Miller of CBSSports.com. We'll be right back. Ashley Collins still to come.